Okay, there we go. Welcome everyone to our second webinar of our CCH2 series. As I'm sure most of you know, I'm Katie Pearson, the project manager for the California Phenology TCN. And today we're going to be talking about using the administrator control panel in the California Phenology or CCH2 data portal, which is a Symbiota-based portal. I think we'll wait for probably, well, it's noon, so we are just going to charge on ahead. Let me show you our agenda for this afternoon. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is basically if you went to the administrator control panel, which I'll show you how to do, we'll just briefly talk about all of the capabilities that are in that control panel. And then at the end of this short demonstration, then feel free to comment or ask questions in the chat box, and then I'll answer them as they come up. So just so you know, you'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, here we go. Here is the portal. I'm sure you all know how to access this. If you don't, it's just portal.capturingcaliforniasflowers.org, or if you go to our website, capturingcaliforniasflowers.org, you can just come over here and click portal. It'll take you to the same place. So first, to get to your administrator control panel, you'll have to log in. If you don't already have a login, you'll have to create a new account. And once you have created an account, you'll have to contact either me or the administrator of your collection to get administrator permissions and see this administrator control panel that we're going to work on today. So here I am. I'm going to go to my profile. Once I'm in my profile, go to Specimen Management and click the name of the collection that I want to manage. For the most part, you only have one collection in this in the collection management box, but if you do have access to others, it'll show up. If you have access to none of the collections, interestingly enough, this entire, or all of the collections will be listed in this box, but as soon as you click on one, it'll say you do not have permissions. So if you're finding that you see all of the collections in this list, contact me and we can get you the correct permissions. Okay, so I click on the name of the collection. And then there are two control panels here. Here's the data editor control panel, and that's what we covered in our previous webinar. And that is basically just editing, adding, and a couple of administrative collection management tools such as loan management. If you have any questions about that, you can go see the recording of our first webinar, which is on our website. Today we're going to talk about the administration control panel in pretty much order of all these things here. So first we have view posted comments, and you can see there's a little notification here that's telling me that I do have comments. That's because I added a comment before so I can demonstrate this, but what you're able to do is view any comments that have been made on your taxa or your specimens. So anyone can make a comment who has a profile. They don't have to have any sort of data editing permissions to your collection, which is why they're comments and not edits. So here, my test profile made a comment on this taxon. So what I can do is hide the comment from the public if I fix that, or if I don't think it's appropriate, I can delete it. Or I can mark it as reviewed, because if I changed whatever this person was commenting on or contacted them further, then I can keep that comment from showing up in my notifications later on. All right, then we can go to edit metadata and contact information. And metadata, as you probably know, is just a fancy word that means data about your data. So in this case, this is data about your collection, and your collection is the holder of all the data. So here we have a list of things, a list of collection information that we entered. So the name of our collection, the institution codes, that's the one that shows up in parentheses after the name of your herbarium. A description that's nice to kind of curate as you get more specimens or you discover more things in your collection. Homepage, contact information, and a couple of other things. One thing you might want to pay attention to is the license. See, we're saying public domain because we're funded by the NSF, so our data has to be public. But you can also you could also use a Creative Commons by attribution, which is totally cool. Here we also have this field called GUID source, and we talked about GUIDs before, but that just means a global unique identifier. And that means that it is an identifier that is so unique that because of the length of it, so you can see one right here, it's so long that statistically you're never going to generate the same global unique identifier on Earth. So that's why we use this very long number, is because that is the unique number and numeric ID to our collection in this case. And then the reason why there's this field GUID source is that saying that every specimen that comes into your collection, in this case, is going to get an automatically generated GUID. You can also, for snapshot collections, which are ones that are not managing their data live in Symbiota, but instead are just frequently uploading updates of their collection, they're going to have a GUID source that's different than the Symbiota generated GUID. If you have more questions about that, you can ask later, but that's just kind of an overview of what that is. And then you can upload an image here from your computer. If you want to change the little icon that shows up in the search collections list, that's where you do that. And if it's too big, it will give you an error message that tells you how many pixels across it has to be. And then you can add an institution or add your mailing address, and this is important for the load management system. Okay, so we covered those two. Now, managing permissions, this is where you'll go if you want to add data editors, administrators, or rare species viewers, I think is what they're called. Yeah, rare species readers. So these are all the people who have administrative permission to my collection. These are all the people who have editing permissions to my collection. And these are all the people who have the ability to read the protected locality information. So if you're worried about a taxon being poached, for example, then you can click in the occurrence editor field. There's a checkbox that says protect locality information. And for rare and threatened taxa, they are often, you can assign in the taxon table, automatically redact information associated with this taxon. Okay, to assign permissions, you can just come in here, select a user, say which type of permissions you're going to give to them, and then just click that button. Anyone who has administrator permission automatically has editing and rare species reading permission, and any editors automatically have rare species reading permission. And you'll notice that I keep on going back to this little pathway. This is really useful if you are, you've gone to the processing toolbox, you've gone way deep into some sort of form, you can always step back by clicking backwards one page on this pathway. Okay, let's see. Now we want to look at importing and updating specimen records, and this will be particularly important for snapshot records or snapshot collections. However, it's really useful to have if you, for example, have a big spreadsheet of data that you need to just append to all the data that's in your portal. You can do that here. So there are multiple options here, and what you will probably most often use is either skeletal text file import or full text file import. And the difference between these are if you want to add data to empty fields that are already in the collection, so say you used to have, or you coded a bunch of phenology data and you want to add that to the existing records, then you'll use your skeletal text file import. If you want to add a bunch of new data, so new catalog numbers, then you want to use the full text file import. The skeletal text file import will not override any existing data. However, the full text file import will. So you don't want to use the full text file import if, for example, you just want to add phenology data or you just want to add associated taxon data, because it will overwrite anything you have existing in the files associated with existing catalog numbers. Then there are some other options where you can upload a Darwin core archive. I'll explain that a little bit later. And then some other options that we probably won't use, but if we do, we'll definitely let you know. All right, Processing Toolbox has a lot of cool features. So the Processing Toolbox gives you a little introduction about how to use it here. And for the most part, Symbiota is really good about explaining what each of the tools is. So there are usually little explanations at the beginning of the tool, or if there isn't, there's often a little eye in a green circle, and you can click that, and it will pop up with some instructions about how to use that tool. If it doesn't pop up, you might have a pop-up blocker enabled on your browser, so you might have to fix that before you can view it. So the image loading tab is what we're going to be using to link images from iDigBio to CCH2. And we're going to upload all of our images to iDigBio, and then they're going to give us a CSV file that has all of the catalog numbers plus the URLs where those images can be found on the web. And that's basically what we're uploading right here. So then all of the images will be available and visible on CCH2. The protocol for how to do that is upcoming. I had some meetings with you guys in this last week and told you all that the protocol should be up in probably a week, maybe two, but probably next week. The crowdsourcing tab is kind of an alternative to Notes from Nature. So you may know that Notes from Nature is a citizen science platform that allows you to upload images, and then they're transcribed by citizen scientists, and then you get all the transcribed data back. The crowdsourcing module basically does the same thing, except for it doesn't have the ability to allow 3 transcriptions for each record and then consolidates those. Notes from Nature does that. The crowdsourcing module does not do that. But if you have a really dedicated group of volunteers who you think are going to have okay quality of work, you could set up a crowdsourcing module. And to use this, you can add specimens to the queue here. There are no specimens available to add for me because I don't have any images up on the collection. Once you do have images on the collection, these will also need to be in the unprocessed status of the processing status field, and then they will show up as available to add. And we can talk about what that means a little bit later if you have any questions. OCR, we're not going to use this, well, you might use eventually, but I'm not going to explain in this webinar. This means optical character recognition, and this is when you can apply some computer algorithms that will look for text in your images. And then reports is a nice place where you can look for either general stats or user stats about your collection data. And this one is giving me what processing status all of my specimens are in. So in Appendix 1 of the Symbiota guide that's on the website, we have kind of recommended definitions for these processing statuses. So pending review is has data associated with it, but has not been error checked. Reviewed is it has been error checked. And then there are some definitions associated with stage 1 and I think stage 2. When images are uploaded but no data is associated with them, they will be in an unprocessed processing status, and that will help you be able to pull them out and do further data entry with them. And then exporter, this is just how you can download a segment of your data or all of your data, depending on what filters you put on it. And there's another option for this that I'll talk about in a moment. All right, so then there is Darwin Core Archive Publishing. And a Darwin Core Archive, as explained on the page here, is a single compressed zip file that contains one to several data files along with a metadata document in XML format that describes the content. So Darwin Core is how a lot of aggregators require you to upload data to them, such as GBIF and iDigBio. And this allows you to export a Darwin Core archive to your own, well, basically download it, and then you can export that wherever you need to put it. All right, next we have review and verify occurrence edits. And this is neat because if you are an administrator who is overseeing a lot of editors, you can click this, and then you can look at, you can filter records depending, or filter the results of this depending on the editor. So you think, oh, I'm not exactly sure about how well this person is doing, so you can look at all the edits they have made. Or it's just a good quality check for when you do teach new data editors or data entry technicians. You can look for chronic mistakes and then teach them how to do it correctly. So that's a really powerful tool. So this will just show you all of the edits that have been made in the past, and you can decide whether you want to apply the edits. So that's saying, okay, this edit is okay, or revert the edits if you want to reject those edits. You don't have to apply edits for them to show up in your portal. They automatically will. But this is particularly useful if you want to renege on some edits that have been made. Okay, so we also have the ability to view access statistics, and that will just give you information about who has been accessing your data and in what format they have been accessing your data. So just applying a certain filter, and then you can see some results. Oh, and back there was a good example of, there's a little eye, and that will give you more information about how to use this tool. Now, duplicate clustering. This is a great tool for discovering duplicates, even duplicates not within your own institution. So what this will do is identify duplicates based on the collector and the collector number and the date. And then you can view these and see whether you think that they are indeed duplicates. And if you think that they aren't, you can say delete that cluster, I'm not confident in that. You can go through all of these over time, and then once you are confident in your list, you can say start batch linking duplicates, and it will link those all, which will tell data editors or data users later on that this is a duplicate of this other specimen that's found in this other collection. This might be a good time to pause and note that there are duplicate sensing, I guess you could say, functions in the data editor. So if you went to add new occurrence record and you added some sort of catalog number that already exists, a little error message will pop up and say, hey, this catalog number already exists. Do you want to see it? And then I can say, oh, you're right. That's already been entered. I must have entered the wrong catalog number or something like that. This also works for the other catalog number field. And it also works when you enter collector number and date. It will also look for dupes if you click auto search. Okay, so then we have some general maintenance tasks that are in the administration control panel. One of these is data cleaning tools, and I'm not going to go into detail about using these in this webinar. That will be the topic of a future webinar. But one of these is duplicate records. One of them is political geography, so this is kind of fixing up your states and counties and countries. And then one of them is taxonomy, which will analyze your taxonomic names and look for misspellings, inconsistencies, things like that. So stay tuned for more information about those tools. All right, a very, very important tool here is the download backup data file. If you were ever going to make a batch change in your database, I would highly recommend to first download, basically download your entire data set. It won't be as big as you think it is because CSV files are very small, but what you can just do is perform backup and save it to your computer, to your hard drive, whatever. This might be a good thing to work into a protocol, maybe a monthly or a bi-monthly protocol. If you have a data manager, that's a great job for them. And then if you make a horrendous mistake, you can restore backup file using that thing that you recently downloaded, hopefully. Thumbnail maintenance. This is really nice because you don't have to upload your own or create and then upload your own thumbnails to the portal. You can say, hey, I just uploaded a ton of JPEGs and now I need some thumbnails so they show up when I have my records all in a list. And then you can just click OK and it will build thumbnails. And it might take a very long time depending on how many images you added, but it will do it for you. And then last but not least, this Update Statistics button. As soon as you click it, Symbiota will go through and look for any changes that you've made recently, and it will update these statistics that show about your herbarium. So this is how many specimen records I have, this is how many are georeferenced, these are how many have images, etc. All right, then that is it for my demonstration, and I would be happy to take any questions. Any questions at all? We have plenty of time for questions, so don't worry about entering them all in a flurry. It should be fine. Oh, good question. Mike Simpson asks, when you back up your data, which of the two formats should you use? My understanding is the most useful format to have it in is UTF-8, and that's because the uploading, sometimes weird characters can be introduced if you use a different format, so UTF-8 is what I've heard is the easiest to use. Alright, Ellen says, we didn't understand review and verify occurrence records. Alright, yeah, I'll look at that again. Okay, so here we are. Ellen is talking about this option right here. So this page gives you the entire record of edits that have been made to all of your records since the beginning of its existence on the portal. So what it'll show you is for every single editing event, it will have a line. So it'll say for the specimen that had this catalog number, which we haven't put barcodes on all our specimens yet, so we don't have a catalog number yet. For this catalog number, this editor at this time changed this old value to this new value in this field name. So you just have a really, really long list of all of these changes that happen. That might be daunting. You don't have to verify every single edit, but it is useful if you suspect that some edits were incorrect. So you can say, let's look at Annie's from some certain date, or maybe not even select the date. And I can look at all of Annie's changes that she's made, and I can see whether I think that they're okay. If they aren't, I can check some of them, whatever ones I think are incorrect, and I can say revert edits, and then if I update the selected record, that means that this new value is going to be rejected, thrown away, and it's going to be replaced by the old value. All right. Does that answer your question? So it isn't for new records. No, this is only edits to existing records. So if you're going to create new records or edit existing records rather than reviewing edits that have already been made, then you're going to go to the data editor control panel, which again we covered in the last webinar. And you can edit existing records. You search for them here, or you can add a new occurrence record in here. All right, Layla asks, will the majority of these tools work the same for snapshot collections, or are most of these limited to live? I think my understanding is that you can still do all of these edits if you are a snapshot institution. However, it will be difficult to apply all those edits back to your home database because they aren't linked up necessarily. But if you do want to do some of these tools and then download that data set and then somehow upload that to your home data set, I believe that's still possible. Any other questions? Thanks for joining me, guys.